The Steam Big Adventure event has come and gone, and with it came over 100 demos to play and explore, but while some of the game demos were for games already released, I wanted to focus on what was up and coming, so I narrowed it down to around 70 games and played them all. Now, I narrowed it down to 7 games with 7 different subcategories highlighting each strength and what makes each entry unique. Now, without wasting much time, this is my list of the top 7 best upcoming games from the Big Adventure event. Now, it's without a doubt that a majority of the games featured in this event were point and click, so it's going to be hard to narrow it down to simply the best, and to be honest, there were a lot of different contenders for the top spot, so I'm going to break it down to the mechanics. I enjoyed Katie and Meow Meow Land for the surreal and abstract environments and easy to understand puzzle design while ditching an inventory system for screen-based layouts rather than a flowing narrative. Nine Nor Lives was another feline-themed adventure that has you playing a kitty detective solving a deep and complicated mystery with a slew of useful options and mechanics such as the always loved lick tool. And The Plague Doctor of Whipra has you filling in the shoes of a doctor trying his best to save a town from the bubonic plague while not fully understanding what he's trying to stop, with a puzzle design that seems more based on building and leveling rather than abstract thinking. But above all, the game that clicked its way into my heart has to be Bornpunk. Designed by Insert Disc 22, it's an Australian indie group that's been working hard to self-publish their first game, a sci-fi mystery adventure that transports you to the year 2155 and has you filling in the roles of 3 different characters who have all been possessed by an alien entity that controls their movements and speech. And while that technically has you playing as 6 characters, the 3 humans and the 3 aliens, it's fun how the game makes you want to both defeat the alien while forcing you to comply at finishing their tasks and missions. And while the demo only lets me play as one of those characters, Mariposa, a CEO who's trying to fight back against the alien in her brain, it already shows enough character and intrigue to make me excited to see what the rest of the game has to offer. Now, one of the strongest aspects in adventure games always has to be the story. Most of these games don't have strong arcadey gameplay elements or a gun to hide behind, so just like sitting down and reading a good book, there has to be a good story to tell. Whether it's Unearthed Stories, John's Tombstone, a janky mess of a walking simulator that acts as a real-life eulogy and celebration of the life and death of the game dev's father, or Best Month Ever, a story about a young black boy and his cancer-ridden mother going on a road trip across America in the summer of '69, where the choices both of you make affect the outcome of the boy's future as an adult. Or the heart-wrenching tale of Extra Coin that not only managed to make me cry in less than a minute into the game, but tells a story of isolation and grief and using virtual reality to escape the hardship of life. But the number one page-turner has to be Beacon Pines. Taking place inside of an unfinished storybook, it's up to you to investigate the small town of Beacon Pines. It reminds me of an 80s sci-fi type story, yet with none of the nostalgic theming. Instead, the art takes the form of the drawings you find inside of a kid's book. But the best part about the entire game is the choices. You get a list of options of verbs and adjectives that you discover along the story that define your choices, each one drastically changing the outcome of the story, and at any point in time you can rewind and try again. It's the closest you can get to gamifying a choose-your-own-adventure story without it turning into a wall of text. And unlike other games that let you make choices, the stories diverge dramatically, expanding and changing dynamically to be completely different games at some point. One playthrough had everyone dying and disappearing left and right, and when I make one small change, suddenly the whole town is calm and nothing is wrong. It's wonderful how much is packed into this little package, and I can't wait to see what comes out of this gem of a game. Now, it's no mystery that most adventure games out there have you solving a, mystery. It can be silly, such as the oh-so-British comedy Trail of Ooze, which has you taking the role of a bipedal cow trying to find the whereabouts of a missing father after he's been kidnapped. Or slightly more serious, like The Ghost on the Shore, which has you listening to a ghost in your head and watching premonitions of spirits as you try to discover the reason why everyone on a mysterious abandoned island have all died or disappeared. And other times, it can just be plain mundane, like Wayward Strand, where you play as a kid journalist just trying to understand the mystery of the airship hospital that she's stuck in for a week, which might sound boring, but when placed in the middle of routine where everyone is moving about and shifting locations, it becomes a battle against time for how long you talk and where you move next. But in my opinion, all the clues lead to Norco Act 1, a text-driven psychological sci-fi adventure that has you playing as, well, it's hard to explain. You create your own backstory and a character at the start of the game, whether you're a lone traveler who can't help but get into trouble, or maybe you're a homebody who couldn't stay away from home. It's all up to you. The same as the relationship of your friends and families based off of memories that you choose for them. The story transports you to the sinking, swamp-filled city of New Orleans in a not-too-distant future, back home after the death of your mother to look after the house she's left behind. But things quickly take a dark turn after you learn that the research she did is now the center of a giant unfolding conspiracy that could decide the future of the city. Filled with surreal twists and turns and masterfully written text and dialogue, while it's not for me, I can definitely see it getting a cult following in the near future. Now, it's no secret that every good point and click, or, well, any story-driven game, it has to have some sort of puzzles thrown into the mix to keep things interesting. If these games didn't have any puzzles, then there's nothing to keep you engaged. And at that point, you might as well just watch TV. And there was a lot of different puzzles and design aspects in this event, from the multi-level dino hunting puzzle in Theropods, or the collection of minigames found in Harmony's Odyssey, aka the multi-leveled sliding puzzles that almost drove me insane. Or if you're a fan of platforming, What Lies in the Multiverse not only tells a fun story about dimension hopping, but has you traveling between those worlds to surpass obstacles and move blocks as you move on. But I have to sing a note for the mind-bending musical puzzle of Sonority. On task to save your best friend, which also happens to be a talking bear, you travel to a forbidden land where you can find a teacher who can help you play a melody that can cure any disease. Along the way, you have to solve a variety of rooms that require you to piece together your own melodies to shift and change the world around you. The different rise and falls of each pitch determines how far each rock and stair moves and turns, and soon you'll be coming with different instruments at the same time to completely transform the environment around you. It takes a lot of thinking and memorization, but with an interesting story and amazing level design, this is for sure the best puzzle game in the entire event. Right after the puzzles, you have to appreciate the setting of a game. Without the backdrop to create the tone and theme of the game, there's not much for the story to go. That's why the setting is so important, such as the mix of two worlds colliding in Blue June. And yes, I know this game wasn't in the event, but I just so happened to play this and it had a mix of some of the most amazing surreal environment and yet beautiful landscapes at the same time. Nightmare Frames is another creative example where the setting practically forms the game itself, taking place in Hollywood in the 1980s, where starving artists struggle to make their dream films as teen-infested B-movies overtake the big screen. And unusual findings which puts you right in the middle of one of those schlocky B-movies, playing as a group of kids trying to prevent a sleepy midnight town from being killed off from an alien invasion. But no game had a better setting than Outcore, taking place on your very own computer desktop. That's right, your desktop. I understand this game might not be for everyone because it's only about 2 steps away from being an actual computer virus, creating files, opening applications, and reading your history to make jokes and comments about you, all in a name to make it really feel like you have a person living inside of your computer. But everything that I saw with this game is amazing and uses its setting to the fullest extent, forcing me to draw shapes in Paint or hunt down files in my documents, and the entire game doesn't just take place here. You travel through her memories with tough as nails platforming and bullet hell style boss battles. This game is a real charm, and while it needs a more defined warning on its store page and the movement needs a little tweak, the game is still being worked out and it already shows a lot of potential. No one wants to play a game if it looks ugly. Through the entire history of video games, we have always strived to take the visuals just one step further than before. But I'm not focusing on just the pretty visuals here. There are games here that take new art styles and different art forms to create their worlds, from The Journey of Autumn, which has the entire game being made with hand-painted assets. Beacon Pines, yet again, with the edges of the world ripping off just like illustrations in a children's book. 30 Birds was a joy to look at, with the entire game almost taking up an almost stained glass approach of its characters and worlds, but for me, the best art style has to be the Crimson Diamond. Now, is it as pretty as the previous entries? No, not by a long shot, but there's something special and technically complex about the visuals here. The entire game being made up of only 16 colors, matching the same technical limitations as the computers back when text-based adventures like this were popular. Solving a mystery of a rare diamond found inside of a fish, you travel up to an isolated town where the residents aren't too keen on so many visitors moving there, and some of them are willing to make sure things stay quiet no matter what. What makes this game stand out from the rest is that it's not only unique, but the art style matches the narrative and theme of the gameplay and intertwines to create a truly rare experience. Now, I'm ending this list off with something a little weird and out of the ordinary. I noticed while playing these games there were a lot of strong ideas and philosophies intertwined with these stories. Looking back, you start to notice this. Extra Coins VR simulation can be linked to the new metaverse being talked all over the news, just like how it's impossible to play the Plague Doctor Whipra without adding in your own experiences with COVID. And Unusual Frames might take place in the 80s, but it's still a narrative about the stress and pressure of modern day Hollywood and its focus of money over art. These games tell stories, and the best stories are the ones that are willing to take a stand and are unafraid to share its emotions about the world. So when I'm talking political, I don't mean a two-party system. I mean in trying to send a message about our world and about our future, a game with a moral code. This is Venice 2089, taking place in a world flooded by rising sea levels of global warming and the world's economy replaced by Bitcoin, but the game doesn't portray it as doom and gloom, more as this is just the world as we is, and humanity lives on. A game filled with that doom and gloom is Organs Please, a bleaker future where the world is in ruins, overpopulation is rampant, and there's so little resources that cannibalism is as taboo as ketchup on a hot dog. So everyone goes on giant spaceships to leave to a new planet, and while the game itself tries to play it humorously, I didn't laugh. But for me, the best political statement has to be Endling. This game is intense, starting you off as a pregnant fox trying to outrun a world on fire before finding shelter. You're the last one of your kind in a world blanketed by nuclear snow and chased by humans and predators alike, and your only goal is to keep your 4 kids alive. This game is a wonderful narrative on environmental impact, human greed, animal cruelty, and much, much more, all packed within this powerful narrative of a game, and that's why, in my opinion, it was the best game of the big adventure event. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Goodbye.